You know, over the course of time, many events have taken place that have all worked together to bring America and the world at large to the place where we are today. Those dates have become engraved in our history, and rightfully so. Just to name a few: July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, and that led to the establishment of the greatest nation the world has ever known. April 9th, 1865, that marks the day that one of the saddest periods of time in our history came to a conclusion. That was the day that Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox, and that signaled the end of the Civil War. Of course, we fast forward a little bit. We all know of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941, which Franklin D. Roosevelt correctly said would be a day that would live in infamy. Just a few years later, 1944, June the 6th, the Allied invasion of Normandy led to the fall of Germany and ultimately the conclusion of World War II. Now then, is there anybody who was alive at the time who cannot remember where they were and what they were doing on November 22nd, 1963, when you learned of President Kennedy's assassination in Dallas? I know. I was in the sixth grade at Salk Elementary in Orange, Texas, Ms. Matthews' class. Just 4.5 years later, April 4, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King was murdered in Memphis. And just a year after that, a little over a year, July 20, 1969, man landed on the moon, and Neil Armstrong took that first step on the surface of the moon. And of course, none of us will ever forget 9/11, the attack on the United States. And it was far more than an attack on New York City or just the World Trade Center. It was an attack on America. It was an outright frontal assault on our financial system, on our government, on the Pentagon, on our whole way of life. Excuse me. Now, all these dates are incredibly important in our history, not simply because they signified events important to the time, but literally events that altered the future of our nation and of the world. But there's not one of these incidents that's even in the same league with an event that is yet to take place that will be the most impactful and important event since creation itself. I don't know the date, but I know the event. I know that without even a minute's notice, the Lord Himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus shall we always be with the Lord. Now be aware of something. This is not the second coming of Christ. This is the rapture of the church. Now I'm going to have to admit, I'm kind of curious just how the news media in this world, in this non-believing world, how are they going to try to spin it? It's going to be the biggest news story in the history of mankind. And how are they going to try to explain it? How are they going to just shrug off the disappearance of millions of Christians all around the world? Was it UFOs? Are they going to say Bigfoot was involved? You know, if I was a betting man, I'd say they're going to find some way to blame it on COVID-19. Part of me is curious to know just how they're going to spin it. But I also know I don't want to be here to see how they do it. The sudden disappearance of so many people will rock this world like nothing anyone has ever seen or even imagined. The word shock just seems grossly insufficient, but it's the best word I can come up with right now. And before the shock even has a chance to fade away long enough for reality to set in, the time of the Great Tribulation will be launched. And folks, we think these last few months, we think that's been bad. We ain't seen nothing yet. I'll go into more detail on some of this other stuff in future videos. I'm scratching the surface today. So what do we do? Well, folks, first off, as Christians, we should look forward to this day with great anticipation and without an ounce of dread. If we're not Christian, we need to get that way. Because, folks, I'm telling you, this is one plane you don't want to miss. But with that mindset, there's only one thing to do. Luke told us, or Luke recorded the words of Christ. He said, "Be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." How long is a twinkling of an eye? I don't know, but it sounds like it's a pretty short time span. But that's what they call it, the twinkling of an eye. Be good to one another. God bless you.